Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking to you about full stack testing with Node.js. I want to start by telling you a little bit about me. I was a software developer in my former life, and I was reincarnated as a QA tester. And according to one of my not so kind old bosses, that means that I must have done something terribly wrong in my first life to come back as a QA tester. But the reason why many people have some kind of concerns or dislike with QA is because they don't understand how fun it is. And so today, my hope is to show you how fun and easy testing and automation can be, and even more fun using Node.js. So how many of you have seen the testing pyramid before? Does that look familiar? So the testing pyramid represents the quote unquote ideal distribution of test cases, starting with unit tests being the majority of your testing, followed by API and integration tests, automated UI and functional tests, and as little as possible, having manual tests. So today I'm going to talk to you about full stack testing. What is full stack testing? Well, I coined it. Many of my friends that were front-end developers transitioned over to full stack testing full stack development once they became reunited with Node. And for full stack testing, Node makes it possible for testers, automation developers, front-end developers to really be able to expand the testing that they do using Node's great modules and technologies. But even though the ideal is for us to have a testing pyramid, in reality, most organizations are still struggling to transition from a cone into a pyramid. So I want to talk a little bit about the challenges of test automation. Maybe some of you have said this before, thought this, heard other people say it. Doing test automation can be challenging because some of the teams, the QA developers or the automation developers, use one technology, the application developers use another. The tests are time consuming. Many times you hear people say, oh, I don't have time to write all of those tests. We're already up against a deadline. Or they're hard to maintain and they're very fragile. We make one change to the UI and they're all broken. Or can we just get away with unit testing? I mean, that's the core. We're testing the logic. Why do we need front-end tests? Or reliability. We see too many reds. We see too many failures. We don't really know what they mean. It's just a waste of time. Even though we know it's important, we just don't have the time to do it because there's too many challenges. Well, Node.js makes it a lot easier. I was introduced to it 5 years ago, and I realized there's just so many opportunities with our community of Node developers that are excited about quality and the open source community and all the feedback. It just makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to go through a few of the tools. These are tools that my company has leveraged. There's so many out there, but these are some of the most known. Nightwatch, one of our favorite, and you'll see some examples in some of the code that I provide today. Nightwatch is a great test framework. It's very easy to use and get started with. Phantom.js, leveraged with Casper, is a great headless browser solution. Chakram, which we'll also show today, has a great REST API test framework. WebDriver.io with Appium and Mocha is a great solution for mobile automation testing. Intern.io, which is one of the newer test frameworks, is really supposed to be the end-all, be-all of automation frameworks that tries to cover all of the full stack of testing. It's still new and getting there, but it's supposed to be good enough to bring you your coffee at the end. So we'll see if it's able to achieve that. Mocha, we're mostly, if you've been doing any development for a while, you probably are familiar with Mocha. It's a very easy to use test framework integrated well with IDEs. Jasmine, well known for behavior-driven development, automation development. Karma works very well with Angular, and QualityWatcher.io, which is a test reporter that integrates with Node.js modules. So those are just a few. There's tons out there, and I'm always asked, well, what do you think of this test framework? And there's so many to choose from. You've got to figure out which one is the best for your application. But these are some of the ones that have a lot of feedback and community involvement online. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some best practices to make things easier for your organization, for you, or from some of your QA teams to get a jump start on automation. The first is integrating your tests into the test directory. So if you create unit tests, hopefully some of you here do, if you create unit tests, under the test directory, there's probably something in there. Hopefully it's not empty. But really, we want to take that to the next level. We want to have all of our tests in one location. This is great because it allows you to take your modules, and if they are transitioned to another team and department, they are able to leverage not only your unit tests, but your performance tests, your API tests, your UI functional tests, all in one location, and they can share the data. So you can see on there that there's a data directory there where if you're creating unit tests and you have to create this mock data, why not allow anyone else that is creating tests to be able to leverage that data instead of recreating their own. When it comes to getting started with API testing, people, it can be a little bit tricky. But what I recommend is start simple, make it very easy on yourself. This leverages Mocha and Chakram. You can see it's very simple code. It's just doing a GET request, and you're validating that you get a 200 response. It's better to start simple and to create a framework, even if it only does a validation of 200 requests, and then build on it as you have time. At least you have a framework that you can start with and build on. As you have more time, you can improve on your API tests by adding validation of the schema and validation of the data that comes back. And Chakram allows you to create your own methods. So you can create a method, for example, called success. And now your call method for success will do all of that validation pretty much in one line. You can take it then to the next level, which is data-driven testing, and instead of having your API tests one request at a time, you can leverage a data file using the data-driven module to put all of the data that you want to iterate through. And now, with just a small snippet of code, you could go through hundreds or thousands different scenarios of requests to test your API. Another best practice is using page object design patterns. So for those of you that aren't aware, sometimes I've seen some people be shocked, like, oh, the automation team uses design patterns. Oh, I didn't know that. So one great best practice in page object design patterns is to separate your test code or the tests for your automation from the page elements that you need to define. This separation allows for changes to the UI to not impact your tests. So there's a gentleman, Leo Laskins, he's an automation specialist with Sauce Labs, and he gives an example of where they had 2,500 tests, and there was a 90% rewrite of the UI. And they were able to recode and update all of their tests in 2 days because they used page object design patterns. It allows you to really be able to keep up with development and keep up with the UI changes and not have as much breakage in your automation. Another recommendation, and I recommend this for developers all the time, is when you are creating, if you're front end and you're creating front end pages, really consider designing your pages with automation in mind. If you look at some of these examples, the ones in blue, those are the locators that we needed to find data on a page. So one of our clients had a site, and we needed to be able to validate a piece of information. And it took hours to be able to find the best way to identify an element on a page. But if it was designed with automation in mind, and our developer either used an ID or class name or an attribute. It would take seconds for us to be able to identify that information and be able to write our automation code 100 times faster. As you can see from the ones in the blue, you don't want to write your code, you don't want to write your automation code where you're using identifiers or locations that are positional. And you'll see if you have to look at a table, if you're requesting a table, those are positional. And if the UI changes and it's connected to a table, your automation is going to break. If you use identifiers, it doesn't matter. For example, if you have an identifier for a button, it doesn't matter where you move that button, your automation will be maintained and stay intact. I always tell people the 80-20 rule applies to test automation. You can do 80% of what you need to automate your front end using the commands, the methods that you see here. Now, these are the methods for Nightwatch, but if you choose another test framework, it's pretty much the same for driving the browser. You're going to be waiting for element to be visible. You're going to click. You're going to be setting. You're going to be verifying, asserting. It's better to start with this list, and as you learn more about automating, that's when you can expand the methods that you use. You can expand how you set cookies and deal with automating alert boxes, but you can get most of what you need done with this cheat sheet. So what I recommend is to print this out, and I print this out for our junior developers. Print this out, leverage this list. Once you get a framework in place with tests that leverage this, you can always go back and improve and make them better. This is just a sample of Nightwatch of what it would look like to create a test. It's very straightforward. You're going to a site, you're waiting for an element that you need to verify the value, you're going to verify it. Very simple, very straightforward. It's a great starting point, and then from there you can add to it by leveraging data-driven testing. Do the same thing that you did in the first test, but now you can do it for as many different options and variables and combinations that you'd want to do. The same holds true for mobile testing. There's still a list. I know mobile testing, it seems, is not where browser automated testing is yet, but there's definitely still an easy way to get started. We recommend Mocha with WebDriver.io and Appium as a good combination. I think this area is still developing, but it's a great solution right now to get started and be able to create some mobile automated tests. We really are trying to move away from the testing that you kind of see in this video of doing things manually. And I think as the mobile world grows, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, it's going to be very important. It's going to be critical to have an automated test solution as well. Same way, it's very simple, very straightforward to be able to create a mobile test. You're driving the browser. You want to have as many labels as you can in your mobile applications so that you can quickly create these automated tests. You may have heard the term or seen the movie, you build it and they will come. Well, I think you build it and they will come may work for applications, but when it comes to automated tests, nobody really comes around and goes, hey, can I see your automated tests? So you have to be able to go out on the road and promote what it is that you create. Having a reporting tool that can take the data that you've, the results, and put it into one form or that's available for your leadership, for your team, is going to be critical. There's kind of this black hole sometimes when it comes to the testing and what's been done and what does it do and what do the results mean. If you have a reporting tool, and this one is a picture of QualityWatcher, and you look at it over time, you're able to, one, build confidence in your organization in terms of the solutions that you have around testing. You're able to get more time set aside for automated tests, and you're able to see what issues are in your environment that aren't related to testing. Many times, People think everything is a bug, but we all know that there's so many different factors that come into place. And if you look at this result, this histogram right here, you'll see that there's consistency until around March, and then there was something erratic going on. This isn't, and many times we don't have this type of data. People go, I told you that automated test framework was terrible, or it wasn't stable, or I knew the code was bad, but what really happened was the servers were down, and that was unstable. So you're able to use, if you have a test reporting tool and you're running it consistently over time, you get the opportunity to share with a larger group the improvements that are being made, and also find and learn what other issues are playing into your continuous delivery and continuous integration environment. And last but not least, we can't forget about performance. Performance testing, historically has been at the end of the application life cycle. It's done. We want to get all the other code in and then we test it. Well, we can't do that anymore. We have to be able to iteratively understand the performance of our products as we are creating them. And it's easy enough to do. There are tools out there, and I name the few that we've used, that you can integrate right into your daily tests. Every time your tests run, you can get your performance numbers. You can collect them over time. And performance numbers are the kind of thing where you need to have a benchmark. You have to look at it over time to really understand. If I've given results to a client and said, here's your performance numbers, and they go, it doesn't mean anything to me. I think it's going to work. But if you can see them daily as they run as part of your automated suite, you can see spikes that will show that maybe this last change is a problem that we need to look into and investigate. So I want to leave you with a few takeaways. Leverage page objects whenever possible. Integrate your tests and make sure that we don't have this disparity or this split between what development's doing and what testing's doing. Let's integrate it together. That's the great thing about Node. Make sure we create our code with automation in mind. And let's continuously test. Many times I hear people go, well, we didn't have a code change today. Why are we running our tests? If you run your tests every day, even if there isn't a code change, that allows you to make sure that your environment's stable and that there are no other factors in place. It's free to run. Run it as often as you possibly can. Make sure that there is some dashboard that is available to leadership and to your team to understand what's going on with quality. It'll allow your team to come up with ideas on how to do this better. And embrace failures. I've said getting read and seeing failures, it's a beautiful thing. That's how we learn. We want to continuously improve and we want to learn. If you all are interested in getting a grade, we've put up an assessment. It's very simple, yes, no, because I don't like anything other than that. A few questions, and you can find out a grade on your continuous delivery of quality. So I've listed some best practices, but there's more in terms of how do you get your organization to a point where it is continuously thinking about quality. And I have yet to see anyone make an A on it because quality is an iterative process. They're continuing to grow, but that assessment will give you a benchmark number. It's free. No one's going to email you. It's free, but it's an opportunity to say, listen, we're scoring 50% or we're scoring 60%, and this is a number that we can work on as we continuously improve. So thank you. We have about 1 minute if there's any questions. Yes. And there's a mic, too, if you would like to use it, or you can just shout. Mic in here, too. Well, Istanbul is very popular. That's what we usually use for code coverage. Istanbul also has a module for code coverage from the front end that you can link in now with your front end automated tests. And I forgot to mention the code that I was showing you is all in GitHub, and I'll put that up and have it here as well. If you'd like to pull it down, it has everything you need to get started with writing your first automated test. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, do we recommend a tool for code coverage? And the one that we use the most is Istanbul. It's very thorough. Yeah, I think it's all a part of the movement of continuous improvement. And the question was, is there a development strategy if you're not going to use identifiers or IDs? I think if developers, and the more developers and the person in the function of QA, even if that's a developer, the more that they work together to find a solution, the better it is for the whole automation process. I've had some people say, we don't use IDs, we use attributes, and our attribute says test in it. And anything that we need to test, we put that attribute in. That was a decision that worked best for their company. But it's a great question. It's one of the things that I highly recommend. The more that developers and QA talk about this, the easier it'll be on development to write it, and the QA function to code it. The presentation is not there now. I can put that up there for you. And then I also have my card if anyone wants any more information afterwards. I think we're out of time. Thank you.